All right, it's Saturday drop number 2. Hope you guys have had a chance to listen to our NASCAR segment with Steve Wilson, editor in chief of Speedway Digest. Joined us. We're breaking down in Iowa. We're also time to get into some IndyCar. Here in Indianapolis is where we're located at, high atop the Balance Studios in Indianapolis, Indiana. My name is Tom Marquess. It is time for IndyCar Saturday Drop. Joining us now is our official IndyCar contributor, Mr. Derek Vance from Push to Pass podcast. How are you, sir?
Good, Tom, again, as always. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to be able to talk IndyCar.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, the IndyCar silly season is holding pattern to as some of the big fish close on deals. We haven't had much movement in the silly season during the month that followed the Mid Ohio, but we have had some things go on. So let's just kind of talk a little bit. So we've kind of touched base on the silly season. Obviously, that's the off season with IndyCar. Now, AJ Foyt, both seats remain available as Antonio Ferrucci in the number 14 Chevy and Kyle Collett, sorry, and the number 4 Chevy are unsigned for 2027. I continue to hear that both could return. Um, that's possible, but highly unlikely for 2 new drivers to enter the fray. Uh, Ferrici's been with the team since 2023 and has led the program since his arrival. So it makes sense that they hang on to him, but then Collett continues to draw interest from some rivals of Foyt, so he might be moving on as well. What are your thoughts about AJ Foyt Racing? Still haven't signed these 2 drivers yet.
I believe both of them will come back in 2027. It's just a matter of time before they get each deal done and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. But yeah, I think Ferrucci and Kyle Collett will be back under the AJ Foyt camp in 2027.
Well, now Miles Rowe, who was earmarked for some kind of opportunity at Foyt, possibly at the Indy 500 in a Penske assisted entry, is no longer expected to be a factor in Penske's future plans as well. So, what are you hearing about that?
Miles Rowe, interesting driver, a ton of skill, ton of ability. I've had the opportunity on a few occasions to run into him, to interview him. Definitely has a bright future, but again, as we said, we got to wait to see how all these seats kind of work themselves out and see what's left.
Well, we don't think there's going to be anything happening over at Andretti Global. I think its roster's pretty well set for 2027 with Ericsson, Kyle Kirkwood, and Will Power all settled in there at Andretti Global. Any thoughts there?
Actually, I can confirm that I believe IndyCar did put out a press release. I want to say it was either Thursday or Friday of this week that the Andretti lineup is set for 2027. The aforementioned drivers that you just mentioned are going to be in that stable again for Andretti in 2027.
Yep, and also same with Errol McLaren. They've got Pato O'Ward, Dixon, and Felix Rosenklapp. So we really, those are 2 drivers that you and I have not had an opportunity to really talk about too much on this show. Scott Dixon going over to Errol McLaren, along with Indy 500 champion Felix Rosenklapp, both IndyCar champions. And we had a brief conversation, and I think that one of the things that we talked about, and I know you talked about it on your podcast, is really it seems to be instead of building for the future with Errol McLaren as a team as a whole, they're building for an Indy 500 championship, and there's nothing wrong with that in itself. But I do think as a team, you need to be focused more on just winning the Indy 500, and I think that there's a debate out there: did they actually set themselves up for success in a season-long season in 2027, even though they have their roster set with these guys? I mean, really, when you look past, when you look at the adding of Dixon's, particularly the adding of Dixon, but also Felix Rosenklapp, you got to ask yourself. It's clear there's no camouflage in it. I don't think they're trying to. What they're after is an Indy 500 win.
Yeah, I don't think they're, obviously, as you just alluded to, I don't think they're hiding that whatsoever. That is what Zach Brown and Tony Kanaan and everybody over there at Arrow McLaren is obviously pointing to with both of these two new drivers, well, new to the team, coming in
Yeah,
2027. Again, I know, a few weeks back we had a lengthy discussion as to how or if this makes sense for Arrow McLaren again. I'm still, as much of an Arrow McLaren fan as I am, I'm still baffled knowing that, if you're looking towards the future, but you're bringing in a driver that obviously, and I hate to say this, his better days are behind him.
Mhm.
And then, looking at Felix Rosenquist again, outside of winning this year's Indianapolis 500 in the business, Tom, you know this as well as I do. What have you done for me lately? So again, like I said, we were a lengthy discussion about this, and the heads at B at Arrow McLaren must know a little bit more than me and you do, Tom, because they feel pretty confident with their driver lineup going into 2027.
Well, and so that leaves us a spot open over at Chip Ganassi Racing. It isn't ready for a formal confirmation, but I think a lot of people know this. It's kind of like the best unkept secret, if you will, Christian Lundgaard to join CGR as Dixon's replacement. The team explored going into the next generation route with signing a star caliber F2 driver. But at the end of the day, it's looking like Christian Lundgaard to step in there and sit down and replace Scott Dixon over at Chip Ganassi Racing.
Nothing official on that yet. It all signs would point to that. But if I'm gonna say, keep your eye on Mick Schumacher from Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan.
Yeah.
He's been finishing consistently here in the last few races. A lot of talk with him. So keep your eye on him, and then keep your eye again on Rinus VK. Obviously, he's with Juncos Hollinger. I think he's going to be there in 2027. But there's rumblings of a technical alliance between Juncos Hollinger Racing and Arrow McLaren in 2027. So keep your eye on that as well.
Well, historically, actually, I'm losing my voice. Ganassi likes to wait until the season is over before driver announcements are officially made. As long as the team, driver, and sponsor are aligned when they're headed in, it really doesn't matter when they confirm or make the announcement to the rest of the world. But yes, I agree with those possibilities. Let's talk a little bit about Dale Coyne Racing. The current thinking carries forward for 2027 that Dennis Hallgeier will be moved into the lead driver slot next season in a car that carries a full sponsorship on it, and that would provide Indy next champion with a lifeline to continue in the IndyCar. What are your thoughts about what's going on with Dale Coyne Racing? Certainly, they've got the NXT title contender in Enzo Fittipaldi. Obviously, Emerson is his not father, but grandfather. But Dale Coyne Racing, DCR, what do you think about them?
Yeah, definitely see Dennis Hauger moving into more of a leader role in that team in 2027. Not to knock off what Roman Grosjean has done, but obviously, again, he's not getting any younger. No knock on him. But yeah, I could foresee Dennis being the lead driver in 2027. And, I've caught a little bit of Enzo Fittipaldi in Indy Next. A lot of talent, definitely the sky's the limit for him. And I would not be shocked if that second seat at Dale Coyne Racing does belong to potentially the Indy Next champion by Firestone. You mentioned Enzo Fittipaldi next season.
You wonder, and this is just a casting my net out deep there a little bit, but I've been really impressed with the Weldon brothers. Maybe not in 2027, but do you think that in 2028 we've got an opportunity to see a Weldon back in an IndyCar series?
Oh, no doubt. Obviously, their dad was a very talented driver, the late Dan Weldon, and his sons are definitely on the fast track to be the next superstar in the Weldon family. So definitely, the next few years, that is somebody to keep your eye on.
Well, it goes more than their name. They are very talented drivers, and they've won there in Indianapolis. It was really fun to watch them this past year in May in Indianapolis. So it would be nice to see them. I had I think I've told this story before, but I had a fun encounter with Dan Weldon in Iowa one year, walking down the pit lane, and just asked him if he got a few moments. He goes, "Hey, I'll talk with you in just a minute, Tom. I got to jump in here in the little outhouse thing they got there." So I waited for him. He goes, "All right, Tom, what do we got?" And I was thinking, "Oh, okay. You remember my name?" He goes, "No, I saw your name tag there." So that was the kind of guy that Dan Weldon was. That is a memory that I have with Dan Weldon. He was a fun guy. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see his sons back in. And I digress, but I do think that I'm very impressed with them, and we're going to start seeing some names. Come back into the series that isn't Andretti. That's a pedigreed series, or isn't a Ray Hall. That's part of the pedigree world. So we'll see how that works out. Let's talk about Ed Carpenter Racing. Obviously, everybody likes him here in Indianapolis. He's from Indianapolis. It's set for 2027, Alexander Rossi and Christian Rossman. But let's talk about Ed Carpenter Racing. They seem to be making moves every other year. They're getting either people are using Ed Carpenter Racing to go on to bigger and better things, or Ed Carpenter Racing is having a hard time finding the perfect fit for their drivers, especially in the road courses. I mean, ovals. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely a lot of turnover there at Ed Carpenter Racing, but also a lot of noise in the off season, bringing in the partial owner that he did of Splenda and Slim Fast and things of that nature. So definitely got some grade A sponsors on board. We got some more money being poured into that program. But yes, definitely needs to find some consistency, and I think he has with both Alexander Rossi, which, side note, he was one of the two drivers that tested the new Indy car that's going to be debut in 2028, I think, if memory serves me correctly. And then with Christian Rasmussen, young driver, very talented, especially when it comes to the oval. So, yeah, a lot of turnover at Ed Carpenter Racing, but yet then you got to find some stability. And I think they have with both Rossi and Rasmussen.
What are your thoughts about Rahal Letterman? They've downsized to two cars. Graham Rahal and Louis Foster under contract for 2027. Foster, who was signed to a multi-year extension last season, is under scrutiny to deliver at a higher and more consistent level. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think Foster is the best fit for RLL?
I would make the argument lately, and again, Tom, you know what professional sports is driven on. What have you done for me lately? I
Yeah.
would make the argument results wise. And again, he may not be there next year, not under contract, but Mick Schumacher has got better results lately than what Louis Foster has. I could definitely make that case. Yeah, definitely. Louis needs to up his game there a little bit. He has fallen behind in that camp, and then Graham Rahal. Obviously, Father Time always catches up with people,
Yes.
and we've talked about this where his kid's getting older. He's going to want to see their events, so his time as a driver could be coming to an end. And it's going to be sad to see when it does happen. But he's still out there trying to finish as consistently as possible. But yeah, just their program in general just seems off and has fallen behind all the other major programs there in the IndyCar circuit.
Yeah, I totally agree. Where other teams are moving forward, Rahal Letterman seems to be moving back in a lot of ways. I feel like they're stuck in a Bobby Rahal sort of mindset, which is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, it's his name, it's his brand, it's his family, but racing's a lot different, especially in the IndyCar series. It's constantly changing. You have to constantly be evolving, and I think Bobby Rahal's been maybe not intentionally, but I just think he's kind of stuck in his own mind and in his own day, and that's why we've seen it's not just been with the drivers, but I mean, how can you have? I mean, there's just so many inconsistencies with Ray Hall Letterman, and not to knock them at all. They're a great team, and they certainly have a spot in the legends of racing. But how can you see this year after year with that team? You have one driver, one car that's doing exceptionally well, and then you have another one who can't even qualify for the Indy 500 and has to be put in a different car. That happened one year, bump day, and Graham has just kind of struggled. How can you have the same ownership, access to the same data, same cars, and have two separate worlds? And I pin a lot of that on Bobby Rahal, not in a bad way. It's just that I feel like he's kind of stuck in his way of doing things.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Obviously, as times change, people have to adapt and evolve. And we're in no position to tell Bobby Rahal how to run his program because it's
That's
his
valid.
money. It's his money, and he can do with it what he
That's
wants.
valid. Yep.
But yeah, definitely. As times change and as and as things evolve, people have to adapt and evolve too. And like I said, we're in no position to tell Bobby he has to do that. He can spend his money however he wants. But
Right.
I think you're absolutely right that as IndyCar changes from year to year, it's definitely a different mindset, and maybe that's the issue over at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. We don't know. We're not inside there, but it does seem like they are falling behind.
Yeah. Some exciting things we're going to talk about Portland, but some really exciting things. The Dallara IR-28 chassis. I did some testing here recently out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Alexander Rossi handled the initial shakedown and validation run that it runs, and then of course multi-testing with Alex Palou. The IR-28 is roughly 100 pounds lighter than the long-running DW12 chassis. I think a lot of drivers, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing them say, drivers, praise the elevated build, and a lot of things have been refined on it. The downforce grip to me is a huge thing, and that the smooth cockpit comfort. But they're making the cockpit safer. Always evolving on that. But I'm excited to see this Dallara IR-28, and it looks sexy as hell. If an Indy car can look sexy, it looks sexy. What are your thoughts on the Dallara IR-28?
Yeah, it is definitely as ZZ Top once said. It is, and I guess you don't know if you can call a car a man, but it definitely is a sharp dressed man to say the least. I'm not trying to offend Melissa, but yeah, I definitely can't wait to see this car in its full entirety, full action. I know it's going to be a couple years yet, but it does sound like the two drivers that test drove it, both Alexander Rossi and Alex Palou, definitely enjoyed it. And it sounds like the speeds may put these cars out of the water in a few years. What this IR-28 can do, definitely excited, and definitely love the step IndyCar took to revamp the car. Unfortunately, again, we have to wait till 2028.
Yeah, well, it's something to look forward to, right? We've got to have something to talk about. I mean, and come May in 2027, that's all everybody's going to be talking about. Okay, so we know what's coming. Hey, you know what? It is. They're in Portland this weekend, and the streets of Portland. I am losing my voice, brother. But Alex Palou's path toward history become a bit smoother on Friday, and he led the pack in opening practice for the Only Bulls Grand Prix of Portland. Of course, the series leader, Alex Palou, is aiming for his record-tying fourth consecutive NTT IndyCar Series championship, and fifth overall. Was the quickest at the Portland International Raceway with I said street race. I think this is an actual oval. I could be wrong on that. You can fact check me on that, because they had a race. Am I right about that? Didn't the race in Portland used to be in the streets? Now it's on the track, right?
This is a road course at Portland International Raceway.
Okay, road course. All right. I was half-assed right. That's all right. But Alex Palou, imagine that leading the practices there at Portland. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, shocker, right? Alex will obviously come out on Friday and set the pace. No shock to anybody. You know what? This is something. Actually, I'm gonna disclose something here that I haven't even disclosed on the podcast yet because we haven't had an episode since I found this out. I ran into and I'm not going to say the individual's name. I'm going to hide the identity. At a local, I ran into an individual that's on the Andretti, the number 27, Kyle Kirkwood Andretti crew at a Indianapolis restaurant within the last couple of weeks. And we were talking about the podcast, and then I asked the question. I said, how is Alex Palou and the number 10 team just head and shoulders so much better than all the other race teams? And the individual told me, and ready for this, Tom, when the number 10 car comes off the trailer, it's already, this is how great crew members, technicians, so on and so forth, that Chip Ganassi has. This individual told me that it's already, when that car comes off the hauler, it's already in race trim. All they have to do when Alex gets in is he'll relay a couple adjustments that need to be made, and then that's it. They don't have to go over and, well, we're missing air here, we're missing time here, No. All Alex has to do is get in the car, put a few laps in and say, hey, these things need adjusted, and that's it. The car is already in race trim when the car comes off the hauler. That's what this individual from Andretti told me.
And that doesn't surprise me. But then you got to ask yourself and wonder why is Alex Palou's team the only one really doing that?
I don't think they're really doing it. I just think they're the head of the class. They're smarter, and I hate to say they're more intelligent, but they are so dialed in as a group and as a crew that, and again, that's got to come also a little bit from the driver. I mean, Alex Palou's obviously no slouch. So, but yeah, that's how ahead of the game they are when they go to track to track to track.
That's crazy. And not surprising, but yeah, that's interesting. Interesting conversation. Speaking of Alex Palou, obviously, carries an 83-point lead over Team Penske in the Team Penske world. But also David Malukas, he enters the final 6 races of the NTT IndyCar Series season, facing the toughest assignment in the paddock, trying to stop Alex Palou. He tried to do it at Indianapolis, didn't work. David Malukas is a really good driver, really talented driver. One of those drivers that's going places. But only Sebastian Bourdais has won 4 consecutive championships. Palou has won 4 titles, including the last 3, and is on the verge of becoming just the 3rd driver to win 5 or more, joining AJ Foyt, which was 7, and Scott Dixon was 6. That leaves Malukas, who seeks to be his first series victory in the 74 start, with perhaps his best opportunity to muster a much stronger challenge to Palou. What do you think about David Malukas chasing Palou?
I think, as you opened up with, it's definitely a tough hill to climb, no doubt. But it's a tough hill to climb just because Alex Palou makes minimal mistakes. Mm-hmm. The only way Alex Palou doesn't win is if Alex Palou beats himself. And that's got to be disheartening for the rest of the paddock. Could David Malukas do it? Absolutely. But it's a tall order. And again, it all starts with Alex Palou beating Alex Palou. And Tom, just as well as I do, that rarely happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, let's take a few minutes just to kind of go around the different drivers and the different things that they're looking at. And let's just kind of, shotgun it, if you will, or hot seated, if you will. And we'll start with Felix Rosenqvist, obviously the Indianapolis 500 winner. He's qualified. He said, he's chasing Josef Newgarden in the point standings. What are your thoughts on Felix Rosenqvist? And I think there's a real opportunity here that Portland could give him for another victory.
Good odds, I think, for Felix. Obviously, with practice 2 just wrapping up, he was top of the speed charts there, so that's a good indication there for Felix and how his weekend's going to go. But yeah, obviously he wants to finish not only this weekend solid, but the rest of the season, the few races that are left, because obviously he's moving back to, I guess I should say, Arrow McLaren in 2027. But yeah, Felix definitely focused, head down, and he wants to finish strong for Meyer Shank Racing.
Kyle Kirkwood has dominated permanent road courses in the junior ranks, winning 32 of his 41 races with him. So Kyle Kirkwood, he started 19th and finished 20th in last year's Portland race. He set some good practices, but what are your thoughts about Kyle Kirkwood there in Portland?
I like his odds as well. Andretti does always bring great packages, performance-wise, to street/road courses. And, Kyle Kirkwood starting to come into his own, flourishes that superstar that we've seen when he first came through the ranks. So I do like his odds. But again, it's got to go down to Alex Palou making a mistake. And again, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, Tom, but that rarely happens.
That's such a politically incorrect thing to say these days. No, I'm just kidding. Beat a dead horse. Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward. And then let's talk about Alex Palou. Let's put them two side by side. Pato O'Ward recorded the top 5 finishes at Portland in 4 of the previous 5 races before mechanical issues left him 25th. Last season, Alex Palou owns 2 Portland victories and has led 106 laps in 5 starts. He boasts a 3.6 average starting position with a 3.8 average finish. When you put those two side by side, a lot of people like to see those two side by side. In my thoughts, I like Pato O'Ward, but if you got to pick between one of the two of them, Alex Palou is who you pick in Portland. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this definitely has to be a season to forget over at Arrow McLaren. Obviously, so much hype coming into the year. You've seen what Christian Lundgaard did last year. Pato O'Ward, obviously, but I think they have 3 wins, and Christian Lundgaard has 2 of them, and he's leaving at the end of the year. So definitely got to be a down year for Arrow McLaren. Obviously, I don't think they'll ever admit that. But if I was to pick between who's going to win the race between Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou, this is a no contest. This is Tom. This would be a total TKO, and I would go with Alex Palou.
And you talk about seasons that probably want to forget. Will Power really has not had his inaugural season with Andretti as he had hoped. Power it's really kind of been feast or famine at Portland, finishing 13th or worse in 3 of his last 7 starts. And he was with Penske at that time, and he's just not lit the world on fire with Andretti. So what are your thoughts about Will Power there in Portland?
I'm going to take a different approach to this and say, yeah, it's probably disappointing in the Will Power standards. You're probably right there. But what he walked into, obviously not being behind a Honda-driven vehicle in 10 plus years, learning a new crew, learning new terminology. So I think first year for Will Power definitely has been rough. We have seen glimpses of the old Will Power. So I'm gonna be interested to see next year in year 2 when he's comfortable behind a Honda-driven car. He's more familiar with the Andretti program, their terminology, the crew, things like that. So I'm not going to judge Will Power on year 1. I'm going to be interested to see the step he takes, getting more comfortable next year before I judge Will Power.
It's time to make our DraftKings pick of the week. I have my pick. I'm going with a sleeper pick that I think is a good one. We've already talked about him today. Graham Rahal in the number 15 My Jack Honda. Rahal has led 69 laps over the last 5 Portland races while recording 4 top 10 finishes. He won the NTTP 1 award in 2023. He finished 4th last season. This year, he placed 3rd at Barber and at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course before spinning out from the 3rd in the final lap in the Road America after contact with Will Power. He finished 12th at Mid-Ohio. I like Graham Rahal to win Portland.
Wow, that's really going out on a limb.
And it pays good.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that pays, because I don't know how many people are putting money on that. No offense to Graham, because I really like him. If we're going to go with a dark horse pick, you know what? It's a guy I just mentioned earlier. He is the face of Juncos Hollinger Racing. I'm going to go with Rinus VK.
Rinus VK, that's not a bad pick at all, really. I don't know the odds on him. I mean, he was second quickest in the 5-car Portland test last week, and has 2 4th-place finishes of the last 4 races on the season, including one on a permanent road course in Mid Ohio. So that's not a bad pick. Rinus VK is who we've got for you, and we'll make that bet tomorrow. So we'll see how it pays off. Maybe we both walk away some DraftKings money from it. Always like doing that. Always like doing the $5 DraftKings. We do it with NASCAR as well. Derek Vance of the Push to Pass podcast, our official IndyCar contributor. We've been talking IndyCar. We've been talking NASCAR today on Saturday Drops. So NASCAR was up in Iowa this afternoon for the O'Reilly Series, and of course, still in Iowa for the Cup race tomorrow. And then tomorrow is the race in Portland with the IndyCar. Derek, what are you guys working on this week? And where can people find your work and masterpieces, sir?
I don't know. You're really raising the bar high there, Tom. Melissa must be feeding you lines again. But now we'll have a podcast Monday. We've been on a couple-week hiatus, scheduling things of that nature. So we'll get back to the grind there. I think we've got 6 races left to go in this season, if you can believe that or not. We'll be talking, obviously, Portland, since that is this weekend, and then looking forward to going across the border, going north of the border next weekend in Markingham, I guess. Nice accent. Ontario for the race up there. So we'll preview that as well. And then all the articles and stories that are written not only by myself, but another contributor to the show, Michael Monroe. You can find those all over at yournews.com / auto racing. Check that out. They have a great NASCAR contributor there for all your NASCAR fans. But yeah, all the articles and you can even find the podcast over at yournews.com, because we are the official IndyCar podcast of yournews.com. So that is all the outlets that can be found. And another tidbit, we're talking about the IR car for 2028. Don't be surprised if you see potentially maybe 2 NASCAR drivers that are with Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse forming a 2-car team for the Indy 500 in 2028. Since that car is going to be bigger, the NASCAR drivers will be more easily be able to get in that car due to the height.
Interesting things to come and talk about. Derek Vance, we appreciate you joining us on our Saturday Drop. We will talk with you soon. I hope you have a great week, sir.
Thanks again, as always, Tom, and have a great weekend as well.
Thank you.